Most people exposed to highly aversive or life threatening events experience lingering short term effects, a few days or even weeks of distress. These responses are perfectly natural. They indicate the fact that our stress response is hard at work, trying to help us adapt. And I think the reason why I'm so interested about that relationship between story and narrative versus physiology, for my own personal experiences, and not talking about trauma, but talking about chronic pain and physical pain. So I dealt with a lot of chronic back pain
Ah,
for seven
start.
or 8 months,
Yeah.
and no conventional treatments helped me. Just physically based treatments didn't help at all. And it wasn't until I started understanding the mind body connection and how I got into this mental wiring of just staying in pain that once I got that education and understood how to break out of that wiring, I got rid of my pain. Can that same type of understanding or same type of thing happen within this conversation in trauma? Like, can somebody have traumatic thoughts or feelings or feel like they are in this traumatized state more or longer than they should be just because they've gotten within that mental wiring and that perception of their state?
I'm not 100% sure I understand your question there.
I guess what I'm asking is within my experience with chronic pain
Mhm.
and physical pain, can the same thing happen with trauma?
Do you mean can people's awareness of their bodily reactions?
Not so much on the physical level, but I guess more so on the mental level. Like I was saying, like my mind was playing a role in me staying in pain.
I see.
So it's
Yeah.
like, can somebody's mind keep them within a traumatic state longer than they need to be?
Oh, I think so. I mean, there's a lot of pieces of evidence that have been coming out lately, like the for example, the our theories about what a trauma is can actually affect how anxious and traumatized we become. Some people have a very broad conception of things that are traumatic, and those people are more likely to develop intense reactions to stimuli. There was some other research about trigger warnings. Trigger warnings became really popular. It turns out trigger warnings don't actually help much, and they sometimes make people worse. People show more anxiety when they receive trigger warnings compared to when they don't. But I think also the idea that people have conceptions about the abnormality of their reactions. And that's become a real thing lately, which I'm curious about, and I don't fully understand it. But um, I think under knowing that the initial reactions that we have to highly averse events or potentially traumatic events are adaptive. The passage you read just before that was from my book, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to make sure I remembered that correctly. Um, and so, well, one of the reasons I mentioned that was because if we see, nightmares, intrusive thoughts initially as our minds trying to come to terms with what happened, it normalizes them. It makes them seem less threatening. They're more benign because we can think, okay, my mind is trying to figure that out. Maybe I can do that myself too. I can do it consciously to facilitate that process. Um, but so that I think that's one healthy way to think about it. But the polar opposite is the fear of PTSD, and I think that's become a real thing where people are worried. Oh my God, I'm traumatized, which only makes matters worse to have that fear. Like I had a nightmare the other day. I'm traumatized. This is really bad, and so I think getting a little bit of a broader perspective on these kind of things and realizing that why our minds do that really helps, I think, and sort of destigmatizes and also makes it less threatening and less disturbing.
Yeah, it's that reactionary mindset that can make it a lot worse than it needs to
Yeah,
be for us.
yeah, yeah. Even there's, if I may say, one little thing that when you brought up chronic pain, and what's interesting is that there's all this research, it's kind of related research on inflammation. So when we have an injury and you have back pain, I've had back pain, I've had all kinds of other things. I'm clumsy, so I cut myself, I injure myself in all kinds of ways. And when you have inflammation or when you have biological invader, a bacteria or a flu, or COVID, any of these things, we tend to get inflammation. And inflammation, this has only been known for a couple, less than 2 decades now. Inflammation sends messengers when there's inflammatory, when there's invaders, or there's an injury, or there's bacteria getting in, and there's an inflammatory response, an immune response. We get all kinds of messengers circulating throughout our body, right? To alert the body that there's danger here. There's something's here that shouldn't be. And inflammation is a swelling of, specifically a swelling of an area to restrict movement. But some of those messengers go to our brain, and they make us by evolutionary this seems to have evolved in humans, that we have these what are called illness behaviors or illness responses to immune messengers. It makes us feel lethargic and makes us feel like we don't want to be around other people. And knowing that really makes a difference. Knowing that, okay, I'm sick right now, or I'm injured, or I have back pain, and I feel sleepy all the time, and I don't really want to be around other people because my body wants me to feel that. My body's causing my brain to think that. And that really helps, because then you say, okay, well, maybe I should rest more, and maybe I shouldn't be around other people now. If you don't have that, the opposite is to take that literally almost and think, I have no energy. I'm just a useless person, and I don't want to be around other people because I'm just I'm not worth being around other people, and people can make those attributions and become depressed because they've had an inflammatory response. So it's kind of the same ball game in a way. We misinterpret what our bodies are doing as some sign of our own failure, and that's really that sends people down the wrong road, I think.
100% the same ball game, and that resonates on a deep level. Knowledge and education for
Yeah.
me and for a lot of people within this space, within the mind body space, like that is the medicine. Like when you have a conscious awareness of what is going on within your body, like that is the true step to healing. Because when you're reactionary, you go into fight or flight mode, and that just makes things worse. But when you're able to detach and understand what's going on, you can kind of just be more at ease